Hello friends and welcome back to Miss Jenny Homemaker. In today's video, I am going to be making a meal that costs less than $5 to make, and it makes so much food that we always eat it 2 nights in a row. So we have enough for leftovers the next night, or you could feed a crowd with it. It's going to be homemade tortillas, refried beans, and Mexican style rice. And you will think that this is a Mexican restaurant when really it's your own cooking and you did it all yourself for $5. To make our restaurant style refried beans, you're going to need dried pinto beans, an onion, 2 of these chicken bouillon cubes, cumin, garlic powder, and your slow cooker. First, you're going to put 3 cups of pinto beans in a bowl and just top them with water and let them soak while we dice up our onion. We have our diced onions in the bottom of our slow cooker, and then we're just going to grab a handful at a time and sort through. You don't have to spend too much time on it, but just quickly sort through any of like the wrinkly, deformed ones and make sure there's no rocks or anything. This is all the beans I've removed. I just kind of look for ones that are like wrinkly and the outside cover is like peeling off. And then obviously check for rocks. Next, we're gonna top our beans and onions with 7 cups of water. I have added my 2 chicken bouillon cubes, and then we're gonna do 2 teaspoons of garlic powder and 2.5 teaspoons of cumin. I gave it a stir, and then we will cook it on high for 8 to 9 hours until most of the water is absorbed. Alright, it's the afternoon and my kids are down for quiet times and naps, so right now is a perfect time for me to work on my tortillas. And if you have never had homemade tortillas or have never made them, I encourage you to try it because it's simpler than you think. It's very inexpensive to make. The most expensive thing in these tortillas is the butter, and the difference between fresh tortillas and store-bought is like the difference between a store-bought loaf of sandwich bread and a fresh loaf out of the oven. They're completely different. You'll want to just eat them by themselves and you'll feel very proud of yourself after you make these, and you'll really impress your friends and family. So let's get started. So for this recipe, you will need 3 cups of all-purpose flour, a tablespoon of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of salt if your butter is unsalted. I always buy salted butter, so I only do 1 teaspoon of salt. And then a cup of water and a stick of butter. And we're gonna melt the butter into the water. So I'll pop that in there and pop it in the microwave and let that melt. Our butter is melted into our water, and I stirred our dry ingredients. Just gonna pour that in and give that a good mix. Now I have mixed it as much as I can with a spoon, and for now I'm gonna have to go in there and get my hands dirty. Now the recipe says to knead until smooth, and I have never been able to get this dough smooth, but it has never seemed to matter. So I don't even bother flouring the counter and like kneading it. I don't even bother doing that anymore because it didn't seem to make a difference to me. So all I do is I just kind of like pull it and then fold it into itself and like rotate and like pull it and fold it into itself in the bowl, because it makes less of a mess and it doesn't seem to make a difference in the final product. That's it. That's what it looks like. If you can get it smoother than that, then good for you, but I've never had an issue with it being like this, and so I'm gonna cover it with plastic wrap and let it rest for 10 to 15 minutes. So next we are going to separate this into 10 to 12 equal sized balls, and then we will cover and let them rest another 10 minutes. All right, we're gonna let these rest 10 more minutes, and I think I counted 14, and they're definitely not totally even in size, but I kind of like variety because sometimes you want a big one and sometimes you want just a small one to snack on. And they're cooked individually, so it really, don't stress about them being perfectly even. And while these rest in their final 10 minutes, I just floured my work surface. I like to use these silicone baking mats. I find that I don't have to use quite so much flour to keep it from sticking when I use these, but otherwise use whatever you have. You will need a rolling pin and then a pan. I use just a plain old non-stick pan. Okay, this is the best I can do so that you can see what it is I'm doing. So I'm gonna turn my stove on to just like a medium low. And I turn my fan on. So I'm sorry if that makes it hard to hear. I have floured my baking pad thing, and then I'm just gonna dust my rolling pin. And try and keep the dough balls covered in between, otherwise they get dry. So I just kind of smash it, and then we just roll it out. You kind of roll it thinner than you think you need to, and then it kind of springs back, if that makes sense. These cook so fast that you'll roll one out, put it on your pan. While that one's cooking, you roll out your next one, and you just keep going until you're done. So it's starting to bubble, but we're gonna let it, oh look at that, just starts bubbling even more. I'm gonna let it bubble more. And then like I said, the more you do, the hotter your pan's gonna get, and it will cook a lot faster. Okay, so there's no color on that side yet, so we're gonna let them keep going. Okay, so now we will flip that one. And this other side cooks much faster. We'll just give it like a minute, let it get some color like that. All right, I'm on my last one. I have kept my burner on in between the 3 and 4 the whole time, and it's been fine. I have my stack of tortillas. I just set them on a clean dish towel, and I have found that that helps them cool without drying them out. I just keep them stacked on top of each other, and I'll kind of like rotate, because the one against the counter sometimes can get, the steam can kind of make it soggy. If you feel like any of them are starting to have like too much moisture, I just will spread them out a little bit so they start to just like air dry a little bit more evenly, and kind of like cover the edges up with one another so that you soften up any dry edges. This one, I don't know if you can tell, kind of, yeah, there has a dry edge, and so I'm gonna move this so that it's on the bottom, and so the steam from the others will soften this up. And before I put them away, you always have to try them just to make sure for quality control purposes. And then I just store them in a freezer bag type thing. I always put a paper towel on the top and the bottom just to keep any moisture away, and they'll get stiff when they get cold, just because the butter solidifies. But we just pop them in the microwave for a little bit, 10-20 seconds, and they get soft again, and we don't even need to put them in a pan. And now for our restaurant style Mexican rice, you're gonna need 2 cups of long grain white rice, 2 tablespoons of you can use vegetable oil, but I'm gonna use avocado oil, a can of tomato sauce, a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of minced garlic, a chicken bouillon cube, a dash of cumin, and then a dash of garlic pepper. And I am not gonna bother buying garlic pepper. I will just do a dash of garlic and a dash of black pepper. The first thing you're going to do is you're gonna get 4 cups of water, put them in a microwavable bowl with your chicken bouillon cube, and you're gonna microwave this for 3 minutes. I have heated up my oil in the pan, and I'm gonna add my 2 cups of rice. And we will brown this rice, and then we'll add our garlic, our fresh garlic, or the minced garlic. And then we'll saute that for another minute or so. Then we will dump everything into, I'm gonna use this pot because I don't have a lid for this pan, but if you have a pan this big with a lid, then you could just keep everything in one. But we will brown the rice, saute the garlic, and then put everything into this pot. I have my burner on medium high, and it takes several minutes before you really start to see color, but then it starts happening pretty quickly. So you have to keep your eyes on it. So our rice is getting pretty golden, so I'm gonna add the garlic and saute that for about a minute. Okay, we're gonna dump in our chicken bouillon water. Oops. And our tomato sauce. I added my dash of cumin and garlic powder and pepper, and then my teaspoon of salt. Give it a stir, and we will cover it. Let it come to a boil, and then turn it down to low for 30 to 35 minutes. I find that 32 minutes is what is best. Okay, it's been 32 minutes and I turned it off, so now I'm just gonna fluff it with a fork. And you can eat it right away, but we usually let it sit about 30 minutes just so it kind of continues to set up a little bit better and that some of that moisture gets out. Our beans have been cooking about 8.5 hours. I would let it go 30 more minutes, but we have to get somewhere, so we need to eat dinner. I'm gonna add salt and pepper. I do about probably 2 teaspoons of salt, but you can salt to taste. And you could leave them like this if you wanted, but we are going to mash them to make them be more like refried beans. And you can use an immersion blender if you have one, but mine broke and I just have not replaced it, so I use a potato masher. Well, that does it for today's video. I hope that it showed you that beans and rice don't have to be boring, and maybe it gave you some new ideas of things to cook when you are grocery shopping and cooking on a budget. And I hope that you will subscribe if you haven't yet, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all in the next video.